Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pash On Podcast. Let's get started with your host, Brian Pash.
Hello, this is Brian Pash, and welcome to another podcast. On today's show, we have some VIP guests that, well, we're going to talk about some of the challenges that dealers are facing today and the marketing messages that are resonating with consumers. First up, we have Joe McCorkle. He is the dealer principal at Simi Valley Toyota. And of course, we have Shawn Forry. He is the creative manager, divisional creative manager to be specific at Kernel. And Sam Caputa. He is the director of automotive sales and strategy at Spectrum Reach. And if you're not familiar with Spectrum Reach, they are a leading broadband and connectivity company and cable operator serving over 31 million customers in 41 states. Gentlemen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thanks.
Joe, let's start
with you.
Thank you,
Brian. Excited to be here.
Great. I am super excited to have everyone on the line. And of course, as the economy is opening up, we have new challenges today with inventory. We're going to talk about this last year and the changes that dealers have been going through. Joe, let me start with you. You are the dealer principal at Simi Valley Toyota. How long have you owned the store? And more importantly, how are you viewing the second half of this year in light of inventory shortages?
Well, I've owned the store since I think we bought and closed on this store in July of 2019. And what was your follow-up question?
Yeah. So since July 2019, you've had COVID, inventory shortage, the economy closing down, the economy reopening, and now Toyota dealers like other brands are facing inventory shortages. What's your prediction between now and the end of the year? Is it going to be the hardest 6 months for dealers, or is there light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, I mean, I'm an optimist. I think there is light at the end of the tunnel. These shortages, from every piece of information that I can gather, are our worst months. We're at the beginning of our worst months. June will be, not a great month, and then July will be probably the worst, where we'll bottom out, and it'll be the worst month of the year, and then it will gradually pick back up from August through December in Q4, and then Q1 2022. I think you'll have normalized inventories back to what we look like pre-COVID.
Well, your vision is what I'm hearing for other dealers. They're hoping to close the year strong and get back on track for 2022. Joe, you told me the other day as we were speaking that when you took over Simi Valley Toyota from another owner, there were some challenges. What was the biggest challenge you faced in basically letting consumers know that this dealership was under new management?
That's a great question. This store had a tough reputation. So the biggest challenge for me was kind of twofold. It was first, we have to make sure that we have the right people. I'm kind of a mission, vision, people, plan, execution type of guy. We had to make sure that we had the right people in place, the right processes in place, at least something that resembled a right process, better than what was here for sure. And then the second biggest challenge, and I have to, kudos to Shawn for this because I've been doing this for 44 years. He was the first guy, the first producer that I've ever had come along that was able to convey how I feel about my customers and my employees in commercial form.
Well, that's a pretty high praise. Over 40 years running car dealerships. And Shawn, let's pick up the ball there. Now, for our listeners, Kernel is the creative division within Spectrum Reach. So customers of Spectrum Reach and the automotive team have access to world-class producers, graphic artists, videographers to create those video messages that can be either pushed out on linear, OTT, streaming. So, Shawn, tell us about how you approach this project, because dealers listening to the podcast probably have had, well, less than ideal experiences with trying to put together creative that cuts through the noise in the local community.
Sure. And Joe, that's very generous of you. I appreciate it. So the first thing I always ask, salespeople and stuff, I'll sometimes get information regarding, target age groups and demographics and where they want to air. But I always like to talk to the actual client to make sure that I need to ask more questions to get what is the real personality of the dealership. Sometimes people ask me, well, I like this commercial, or I want something like this guy's doing or this woman's doing. And I'll say to them, well, that's great, but if you copy something like that, you're really just reinforcing that person's brand, and that's not going to help you. So you really need to get to the heart of the mission and the personality of your dealership and your ownership and your employees. So I sat down with Joe and we talked for I think an hour and a half, and I just kept asking questions, but I was really, really impressed about his passion and the reason why he wanted to get into the dealership business to begin with, and for what he wanted to do with Simi Valley Toyota. So, when we started talking, the creative came out of really his story, and that's really important. You hear story a lot these days, but his story was something that was really unique to me, and that's how I came up with the first spot in the Driven to Be Different campaign. It was the road to Simi. So, the best place to start in the story is the beginning. And so that's how I wrote the first one. But I always knew that the best way to convey his message across was getting him on the camera. So after I wrote the one, and we kind of did it in testimonial style, but it was written. After that, we just went through questions, and I kept asking him all the other questions that about his dealership, and he just gave me a ton of information to work with. So that's how we developed it.
Joe, let's get back to this story then, because obviously from Shawn's perspective, and I've been in creative situations where the person that's hiring you isn't giving you much meat to kind of serve into a beautiful meal. So Joe, for the dealers listening, and that there's so much diversity in automotive, could you kind of simplify to our listeners what was the message that you wanted to get out to the local community? The road to Simi was the spot, but what was the overall emotion that you wanted to evoke from the people watching these videos?
Well, in this particular instance, what I came in and out of Simi Valley 7 times before we bought this store. And never once did a salesman say hello to me, ask me if I wanted something to drink, ask me if I needed directions to the restroom or the parts department or the service department. In 7 completely different visits. One time I spent 45 minutes on the lot looking at cars, and no one ever said hello to me. So I got on an airplane, came home, and it was a no-brainer decision for me. I was like, Simi Valley deserves better than what they're getting right now. And then I've always had kind of a different operating philosophy when it relates to our business. I think that we're in need of change, and my slogan up until this point, till I came to Simi Valley, was always changing the way the automobile business sells cars. Why can't it be an expeditious, fun experience like it should be? And so we do all that we can on our end to eliminate all that, and it's effective with that underlying, handshake that reaps sincerity, so that people know that they're doing business with genuine people, and that it really does go beyond a sale. You know what I'm saying? It's not about how much money can I make on you today when I buy your car, and I don't care if I ever see you again. I don't care if I lose $1,000 or $2,000 when I sell you a car. I want to re-earn your business every time you walk on this property. And so the real challenge is, that, and then ingraining that culture in the people that you surround yourself with. and we still have a long way to go. Don't get me wrong. It's a never-ending battle, but we're in a much better place. I mean, this store set 3 records in the last 3 months, not because of the money that we're making, but because of the volume we're doing. I just had a customer on my showroom floor yesterday that I just sold his 5th car in 2 years.
Well, Joe, I love the fact that you came in and were laser focused on making it faster, easier, more fun, as you mentioned, to buy a car. Are you using any digital retailing tools to provide those first pencil experiences, those accurate payments and pricing, or do you believe that's best done in the store? Where are you sitting on this very, very hot topic? We've seen Roadster recently get purchased by CDK. We saw Gubagoo just recently get purchased by Reynolds and Reynolds. Obviously, there's a lot of money chasing the technology to make a consumer more comfortable or give them the information about the affordability of a car. Where are you sitting in your perspective on providing those tools online and in the store?
So we use a tool called First Pencil, and it's completely transparent. If you were to reach out to our organization through our BDC or call direct, the first thing we're going to do from you is collect the information of what you want to buy, what you want to trade in. We're going to go into a software product called vAuto. I'm sure you're familiar with it.
Sure.
We're going to put a genuine, hard, good number on your car, and it may be worth a little bit more. It may be worth a little bit less, but we're not going to give you any less than what we put in writing. And then we're going to collect your email address, and we're going to send you out a spec sheet on the new car that you're buying that shows you every option that's on the car that you've chosen. We're going to send you out something called a First Pencil, which shows you a 36, 48, 60, 72, and 84-month financing options with $2,000, $4,000, $6,000, $8,000 down in cash and 2 different lease options. And those payments are calculated on 24 and 36 months. So the only question at that point is, did I miss the boat somewhere?
Right.
So we aggressively price our cars, and we're completely transparent. I think the consumer, look, they've been trying to tell us that for 15 years. What we hate is what you do behind the curtains.
That's right.
We just pull the curtains back and email it all to them. And then, you know what, when they go visit another store, they're not going to get that kind of, they're not going to get that kind of treatment.
And Shawn, from a creative standpoint, hearing Joe wanting to be transparent, wanting to win customer business, just not once, but multiple times, how were you able to communicate that passion, that vision in video? Obviously, we can definitely connect the dealers who are listening to today's podcast with examples of what you did for Simi Valley. But as a producer and, a creative manager, how do you kind of communicate this? Well, maybe words that people have said before but never delivered on, but it's clear that Joe's delivering. So how do you convert that story into a believable testimony?
Well, first of all, you got to have somebody that really believes that. There was kind of in that mission, like Joe does. It was kind of a joke in the production business that for I'd say about 10 years ago or so, for a while, everybody said they had, we have the best service. Everybody wanted to say we have the best service on our commercials. But, like you said, Brian, how do you convey that? And the truth is, do you have that service? So if you're going to claim something like that, so a lot of times it wasn't really their main selling benefit. But with what I got out of Joe and his employees was that it was. So what I like to do in commercials, when something like service, just saying it in text or graphics doesn't convey that message. You got to go in with video of showing people. That's where a lot of the B-roll comes in. We're backing up what Joe's saying by showing people and smiling faces and close-ups. A lot of times, and especially in the local markets, videographers and directors don't focus on how important the close-up is in the filmmaking. And that's where you really get that emotion. So we're going off Joe talking about it, but I'm also cutting back to customers and their employees and them really just enjoying working with their clients. So that was a main part of the commercials that we did.
Shawn, as you say that, I'm visualizing some of the commercials that are most memorable to me within the automotive space. And you're absolutely right. Those close-ups, even a mother with their child in the service drive, or, a family kind of looking at a car and jumping around in the seats, puts a smile on your face because, you've seen this so many times and it does capture that emotion. Sam, I want to turn a question to you. The dealers who are listening to today's podcast are hearing a story about a partnership of a storyteller, which is Joe, and then a creative manager and a team at Kernel putting that story into film. And there's been so much, say, less than desirable or poor quality video out there. We don't need to go far to find it. But what is Spectrum Reach doing to help Joe get that video message out today? I want to really speak to the fact that Spectrum has the widest reach and the most creative ways to get a great video message out. So, Sam, what would you tell dealers who are looking to really change perception, increase reach, and get a specific message out in their local markets? If it's served by Spectrum, what can you be offering them to make that delivery effective and measurable?
Sure. So it always starts with the creative. So once Joe and Shawn come up with what is the message and what's the story that we want to tell, it's our team's job then to figure out, well, how do we utilize the most reach, the most data, the most transparency to help Simi Valley find, reach, and measure their most valuable in-market shoppers. And so we do that utilizing our data-driven TV product, our data-driven streaming TV product, and other digital products in our suite, and building the most effective plan based on all of the first-party aggregated, de-identified viewership data that we have available to us as the leading cable and broadband connectivity provider, and matching that data against third-party leading global providers like IHS Markit, Experian Auto, to understand how the shoppers are consuming video and then reach them effectively.
Well, I think that for dealers listening to today's podcast, the complexity of video as compared to back in the days when it was just linear, they put a commercial on, they pushed out linear, it was over, really gets confusing. Joe, from your perspective, you've been in the business for a while, and I love people who've been in the business, are still passionate, are still moving to change the automotive retail experience. What's your view? I think that if you don't have a good partnership like you do with Spectrum, it's hard to understand distribution of video today. I mean, how many people a week or month are calling you, telling you that they have the next best thing for video distribution? Is it crazy as I'm hearing, as I'm seeing?
Yes, it is. Quite frankly, I laugh about this all the time. Dealers and general managers think we're geniuses when it comes to advertising. You know what I'm saying? But we're not. And so I have an ad agency that's out of New York City that monitors and tells me what to do and what not to do. From a strategic standpoint, I just explain to them what I want to accomplish, and then they kind of pull the strings, I guess, behind the scenes. But yeah, I get hit on every day, 3 times a day, but I just keep it simple. Who are we? What's the message? What are we going to deliver? And pull the trigger. These are some unique times that we're in right now. So, what I look for, and Spectrum is a great example of this right now, is I look for partners. I don't look for people who come in to sell me some third-party software program or some unique SEO and SEM service that they have. I look for people who are invested in my company, or vested, I should say. People, I'm looking for win-win relationships. I have that with Shawn. Gina was the first person that ever hit me when I came to this city, and she rode with me through ups and downs. Lord knows we've had a ton of challenges here. But when she walks in and has a product that she's passionate about, look, I just do it.
Right.
Challenging times right now, right? We don't have any inventory so what's the point in spending any money? You're just throwing good money at bad money. But at the end of the day, Spectrum has everything that I need to get the job done here. I want to just take care of my backyard. And if I want to branch out of that, they have the ability to do that as well. And she's a vested partner. She's genuinely concerned about our success.
Sam, some dealers may not be aware that in addition to your linear offerings and OTT and streaming offerings, you also have digital offerings, and that includes Google and Facebook. Can we talk a little bit about that? How are we able to use great creative that Shawn has developed in partnership with Joe and leverage that, say, either on Facebook or Instagram or any of the platforms that you support, which would be traditionally viewed as digital platforms?
Yeah, we do offer a full suite, and it's really meant to capitalize on the fact that TV and streaming TV, or OTT as many refer to it, when that's running and you have really brilliant creative, it helps all of your digital footprint, all the different products and one-to-one targeting that you put out there perform better, more efficiently. Right. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to drive the most valuable shoppers for the dealer to Simi Valley's website to engage with the digital retailing tools and then walk into the store. And so included in the suite, we've found great success in combining a data-driven TV and streaming TV campaign with brilliant creative, alongside display advertising, online video, paid social display advertising, and then we have a paid search technology as well that enables us to perfectly pair a really targeted one-to-one type strategy on the digital product suite side with all the advanced targeting that we're using on the TV side. And it really helps drive traffic to the website and then into the showroom.
Joe, I host each year the Digital Marketing Strategies Conference. In July is the DMSC 2021 conference. It's in the Napa Valley. And one of the things I'm going to reveal is some research regarding the outcomes of Google SEM, or pay-per-click advertising. And let me just give the listeners a little spoiler alert here. The vast majority of phone calls generated from Google pay-per-click campaigns are for service, parts, administration. Less than 15% are actual sales calls, meaning that in a local community, when somebody's searching the dealer's name, or someone just says Toyota dealer near me, the majority of those phone call conversions, which is the number one way people convert, are not for sales. And Joe, what that tells me is that since service is a huge part of the business, and it's not easy to find car shoppers, we better have a clear message that tells consumers about the experience that's memorable. Meaning, you could be buying Toyota dealer near me, Toyota dealerships, and hope that someone's going to buy a car, but the majority are not for sales opportunities. And once that click is done, the consumer remembers nothing. If there was one message that you would want local consumers in your market to remember about your store, what would be that lasting memory? You mentioned, hey, I want them to be a long-term customer, but what's the thought bubble you want them to have when they have choices in the local market, that, tell you the truth, cars are being made very well today. So the differentiating fact, even though Toyota has the highest resale, the most amazing quality products, what's the message specifically for your store that you want to get out there? So when they're ready to buy, you may not be able to capture them in Google easy, but they're going to think of your store first.
Yeah, I mean, I just would have, it's our business culture. Sounds goofy, but it's just the truth. If you come here and you shop our store and you walk into any other car store, the first thing you're going to want to do is turn around and come back to the car store that you were just at.
And Joe, when you step back and look at your coming up on your 2-year anniversary, what's the hardest part of making that culture stick in the store with your employees? What's the biggest challenge? Because there's going to be some dealers listening here and say, that's what I want, Joe, but I'm having a hard time getting it to stick. What's your thought bubble on that?
Well, I mean, my background is in leadership development training, but the short answer is it's your people. Whether you're looking at Gen Y, Gen X, Gen Z, whatever that is, the 80-20 rule in my mind still applies. You have to find the 20% of the people that want to do the 80% of the work, that want to use this business to be the vehicle that they use to be successful in life, and they're willing to pay the price. I mean, there's a big price to pay to be successful in automotive retail. But for me, it's balance. I offer my employees no vacation policy. Basically, they can, no vacation policy. That if they have once in a lifetime opportunities to go do something, they're welcome to go leave. But we run a total team concept where when you leave, Shawn's got to cover you until you get back, and vice versa. And that's something that's unique to our. I mean, it's hard to get it to stick when the business is so abusive of, the most precious asset that you own, and that's your time.
That's right.
That's for us and the consumer. You have to be respectful of everybody's time. And then if I make sure that they give 130, we don't bother them when they're out of work. If they're out of work, we want them to give whatever they're doing 130%. When they get in work, we want them to give us 130%. And so it's mutual respect at the end of the day. And then it's a pretty simple process to follow. They look forward to coming to work.
Well, I will tell you, those are refreshing words, because, for years, the turnover rate at dealerships have been in the 70+%.
It's crazy.
Right now our country is going through a shortage of entry-level workers at restaurants. And I saw a comment the other day that stuck with me, and I'm just going to share it. It's a little off subject, but it's related to what Joe's saying. Someone said, could it be that the reason why we're having a hard time getting people back working at the restaurants is because the way they were treated, even at a higher wage, is no longer acceptable. And many of these people have gig jobs where they're driving their own car in Uber or doing Instacart, or they're being more entrepreneurial. And the days of just, treating them like some disposable tool in the restaurant's arsenal are over. And I will tell you, Joe, that the way you look at your employees, and the fact that, hey, if they need to take time with their family, let them be 100% in, let them get refreshed, makes so much sense. Shawn, I want to make sure we cover this piece, because Kernel is the creative division with Inside Spectrum. And I've seen the work of Kernel, and we're talking world-class. I know that maybe it's about 18 months ago, Kernel also developed some digital retailing tools, some videos to help dealers market in their local community that there's a new way to buy a car, which is faster and easier, mostly online. Shawn, are you seeing dealers lean more into sharing in video the fact that these new tools on websites do help break down those stereotypes about the Wizard of Oz, the man behind the curtain, trying to hide the numbers? Are dealers leveraging a fresh message, or is it still something slow that you believe is gold for dealers in any market?
It's a great question. And like in the last, several years, the digital has exploded, of course, and you need that in your mix as well. I still believe, and Joe said the word simple a couple minutes ago, and he gave you a pretty simple answer when you asked him like what was the most important thing he wanted to convey. And I'll say that about the creative, and for anybody who's in the process of making video, simplify, simplify, simplify. It's like there's so many clients want to get their entire thing out in one commercial, and sometimes you have wall to wall covering everything, and it just becomes a bunch of noise. The most important thing that we can do on the Kernel side and the creative side is the way search works these days. They have to remember your name and they have to have a feeling with it. So even when you're doing digital or linear, and I recommend both, to be honest with you, TV really captures the emotion better than anything. But I really recommend simplify your message, get that one message out there that people are going to remember. That's the most important thing, whether that's digital or social or linear TV. That's I have found in my experience the best way to develop a brand and have people remember you. And even if they're not in the market to buy a car that day, they're going to be on top of mind to type into their phone or their computer your company the next time they're in the market to buy a car.
Well, I really appreciate that candor, Shawn, because here's what the data is telling me. And I think Joe figured this out, whether it was years of experience running dealerships or a vision he had one night while sleeping, is that, when you want to turn a store around, it's not just another pay-per-click campaign or a fancy lease payment ad. It's really giving people a reason to put you in their consideration set. And the data that I'm going to be sharing at DMSC screams that dealers better have a video everywhere strategy that's not about price payment. It's not a 30-day special. It's the overall experience that they're going to have. I mean, when I use the word Ritz-Carlton, when I use the word Disney, people have instantly an experiential vision of what that's going to be like. Yep. And what I'm finding is that to identify a new car shopper in a sniper way by figuring out which keywords are going to work is very, very difficult. And the outcomes are showing that consumers are just clicking on ads and calling for service. They're just using search as the transport mechanism to get them to a dealer's website. What I'm hearing from you, Shawn, and it resonates with me, is, hey, we do want more people searching the dealership's name. They want to have a great experience. Joe has said that that's his purpose. So if that video message with great creative is on Facebook and YouTube, on all of the video channels, linear, streaming, OTT, that Spectrum reaches, and Sam, I want to go on the record here. You also have access to really any video path, even video advertising on Amazon, right? Because your video distribution platform is everything you own plus areas that are very special. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah. I mean, if there is premium video out there, premium meaning brand safe, privacy compliant, and big volume of audiences watching it, then we want to offer it up to our customers as a way to find, reach, and measure their most valuable in-market shoppers. So we do go well beyond our traditional customer base when reaching in-market shoppers across TV, across OTT, and then display, online video, paid social, and search. Because what we really want to offer to the dealer is the most reach, the most data, the most transparency in finding those shoppers and reaching them. So when, Joe and Shawn have gone, okay, here's the creative message. We want to get this out in front of the, shoppers that are in market for Toyota's top 5, vehicles, RAV, Camry, Corolla, and such. Then we're going to go, okay, what are our shoppers watching? For those, what are those segment shoppers watching on television, on streaming TV? How do we reach them most effectively using privacy compliant methods where all the data is aggregated and de-identified? And then how do we come up with the right digital targeting strategy to accompany that across display, online video, social, and paid search so that we can drive the most organic website traffic, the most Google My Business traffic, and the most paid search traffic as well, so we can, we can get the leads and outcomes that the dealer's looking for.
Sam, you mentioned 2 things, and I want to make sure we cover them before we end the podcast. You mentioned consumer privacy and brand safe. And I want to go on record that, as I've worked with the Spectrum Reach team on different dealer opportunities, this has always been a consistent message, which I love, is that, yes, Spectrum has amazing sets of data, but will never compromise the integrity of their customer data as being the internet service provider or their cable operator or their broadband, connection out to the larger world. And that, I think, is just important for everyone to know that this is a cultural foundation for Spectrum. But let's talk about brand safe. I don't think dealers really think too much about this, but there have been many times where I've seen a dealer's video show in an inappropriate place. How does Spectrum help their customers make sure that Joe's video message is not playing next to or associated with content that would actually conflict with his ethical, moral, or business culture at the dealership?
Well, as a cable operator, we just have access because of our carriage agreements with the major programmers on all the major cable networks. We've just got this big supply of the brand safe, most viewed network, at inventory that's available at the local level. And so we can run Joe's ads on all of those networks that we've known and loved for the last 30, 40 years, whether it's on TV or it's on streaming TV or OTT. We've got enough supply to where we can not only reach the shoppers that we want to reach, but reach them within the very specific geographies that are most valuable to Simi Valley and our other customers. And to do so always, you mentioned brand safe, privacy compliant, that's tops on our list. Will always be tops on our list. And at a time when, cookies are going away, things like that, privacy compliant is at all-time high on everyone's list. Fortunately, that's always been a part of what we do. It's the biggest part of what we do.
So good, Sam. You're right. Everyone's attention's about privacy. And I just want to remind the dealers who are listening and the marketing managers, when these odd companies come in and say that they're instant video experts, when they tell you that they can have more reach at a lower cost, just please be cautious. And that caution is, do these people really understand how to control, target, and make sure that your brand is safe? And in many cases, they're just reselling a reseller's resold product, and there's no accountability. So, Sam, I just want to really highlight the fact that Spectrum has always been a leader in this area. Joe, as we wrap up our podcast, I want to thank you for your time. when you look at, say, coming out of this, COVID bubble and now inventory shortage bubble, here's what I'm seeing. Dealers for the last 18 months have had record months, highest profitability. They've learned that they can do more with less. They're working on efficiency. But also what we found out is that they didn't have to discount as much, because if you're selling a great product, if the product is what the consumer wants and your price is fair, the conversation doesn't need to be about price. It should just be about, is this car a right match? Do you see, with inventory levels coming back up, any permanent changes that the last 18, 24 months have made on the automotive retail world? Is there anything that you're thinking of, say, hey, Brian, I would never have guessed it, but over the last 18 months, I've learned a lot. This is one thing I'm going to stick to going forward. Anything come to your mind?
I gotta go back to certainly all those things that you just mentioned are absolutely correct. There's a couple things. The first thing that comes to my mind is that in my messaging, I stopped talking to, the 10% of the people that are in market shoppers. I'm talking to the 90% that aren't.
Amen.
The second thing is we can do more with less. It's forced us to sit down, and I don't do this. It's just part of my own, the way I lead, but I let my people redesign the selling process to make it more efficient and more conscious of the consumer's time. And that will never go away. And the pricing piece, it is interesting. The pricing piece, I think this has weakened us because people need cars right now and they're coming in, they're paying all the money for it. So we've got to get back to selling the value of the product. We've gotten away from that, and we're going to come out on the other side of this in a weak place if we don't stay on top of our training. Consumers are coming in trying to buy $20,000 for $16,000, and we're trying to sell that same 20 for 24. At some point, there has to be, the value has to meet the price, or you're not going to create a transaction. And I think we've gotten away from that.
Meaning, Joe, in the future, when someone paid $5,000 over the value of a car, and then they come in and try to trade that out, and now they're $10,000 or $12,000 underwater, it's going to have a ripple effect on the next transaction cycle, correct?
You can't even imagine, right? Because if you pay $5,000, and I've been telling some of my friends, to be honest with you, and nobody will want to hear this, this is not the time to buy a car. But let me give you an example, and I'll do it as quickly as I can. Guy comes in and pays. There are cars that we sell that they pay $10,000. The minimum that they would sell for is $10,000 over MSRP. That guy gets tired of his car, or girl gets tired of her car 3 years into the deal. She comes in, she trades that car in. The market's normalized. You put a real number on that car, she's that much more upside down. So then that negative equity, either she has to buy a $15,000 less expensive car the next time around, or come out of pocket with $15,000 in cash.
Yeah. And
that's going to be a problem.
Joe, really, this is the first time, I've been hearing people, put numbers to it. But, the other day I was in, and even though this is probably to me like the top of the craziness, I was visiting a Mercedes-Benz dealer, and they had a G-Wagon on showroom. It was an AMG. It had a sticker price of $180, and this one was white with certain trim, and it's like, yeah, this will sell for $240,000. And I said, someone's going to pay $60,000 over sticker? And it was like, yeah, this car will sell within 3 days. We just put it on the showroom. And I'm trying to say to myself, all right, $250,000. And then I looked, and these cars, when they normalize, that $180,000 car is probably going to be about $130,000 car. And now someone's $100,000.
Yeah, but listen, it's bizarre how it's happening. And so then what happens at that point? What happens to that bubble? The lenders they're not going to loan people $10,000 and $12,000 over an invoice on a car. It'd be creating a bubble in the car market like there was in the real estate market years ago. They're just not going to put themselves in that situation.
Well, it's going to be interesting to watch how this next year plays out. And right now, I agree. It is not, under normal circumstances, a financially wise time to be overspending on vehicles that instantly devalue when you drive off the lot. Now, the difference of that gap is wider than ever. Joe, I want to thank you for your time and just willing to share that the partnership that you created with Spectrum has allowed you to turn this store around in a very short period of time, having record months of profitability and volume, with the right message, with the right targeting, with the right partners, really changing the way retail is perceived in that local market. And Shawn, thanks for listening to your clients and putting together a story that's resonated, that is actually changed, the dynamics of business. And Sam, thanks for joining the conversation, because I don't think that dealers understand that Spectrum with Kernel provides that complete 100% solution of what some dealers might consider traditional plus digital, but now it's really a video everywhere strategy. And Sam, today I'm going to let you make a closing comment. Why is video everywhere today, an omnipresent, omni-channel video solution, more important than ever?
Well, the main thing I think is that, nothing educates a shopper or any consumer for that matter better than sight, sound, and motion, all in combination with a really emotional, connective message, right, made by world-class creative service providers. And so we really need to get these video messages in front of consumers, because shopping is changing on all the different video platforms that shoppers are using to watch TV. And we need to do it in such a way that enables dealers to be effective in utilizing their marketing budget, and not spreading it too thin, but not oversaturating anyone either, because no one wants to see the same commercial over and over again, right? So really, we would just encourage any dealer to partner with someone that has a big supply of, as big as you can find, of brand safe, privacy compliant, data-driven video that enables, the dealer to reach their most valuable audiences in the zip codes and the parts of town that are most valuable to them. And so video is I believe always going to be a big part of that. And we're really excited to work with Joe and dealers that really, understand the importance of a solid brand promise that stands out, to educate shoppers on why they should come shop at the store.
Well said, Sam. We've been talking about having a clear brand promise for a number of years as we toured the country doing regional events with dealers, and it's glad to see that some have really stepped up and invested in that creative. We host 2 conferences each year. Spectrum Reach will be once again updating the dealer community at the Digital Marketing Strategies Conference, which we hold in the Napa Valley each year. That's July 11th, 12th, 13th. And if you missed the conference, don't forget you can still buy a virtual pass and view all of the keynotes, the panels, discussions, and workshops that will be presented. And then moving forward to November is the Automotive Analytics and Attribution Summit, which each year Spectrum comes to the table with amazing data on the impact, power, reach, and measurability of video. So we look forward to seeing the annual report at the Automotive Analytics and Attribution Summit in Palm Beach. Beautiful place for holding a conference. For the listeners today, if you've not taken time to follow this podcast, you should know that We interview thought leaders, industry movers, shakers, dealer principals, marketing managers, everyone who's making automotive retail more effective, efficient, and as Joe mentioned, more enjoyable for the consumer. So make sure you listen to all of the episodes on this channel. And I want to thank our guests today and thank you for listening. And we'll catch you another time on the Patch On Podcast.